Hi, and welcome to the Mental Health Raw and Open podcast. I'm your host, Jody, and I created this show to have honest, candid conversations about mental health in an effort to help reduce the stigma. I am issuing a trigger warning as many of the topics we discuss may be highly sensitive for some. If you are having suicidal thoughts, please reach out to someone, go to your local hospital, or call a crisis line. In the United States, call 1-800-273-8255, and in Canada, 1-833-456-4566. Welcome back to Mental Health Raw and Open. On today's show, we'll be speaking with one of my best friends, Michael Landsberg. Michael is too many things to even start off describing, so I'm going to let him take it from here. Michael, welcome to the show. Thanks so much for joining me.
A riveting and compelling discussion.
Excellent. Yeah, I'm hoping technology will hold out as well. Tell me about you. Tell me about your depression. What got you speaking? What got you sick, not weak? I think most people obviously know you're a famous sports broadcaster, but what about the rest of you?
Well, I think some people would know that I have been on TSN virtually all my life. And yeah, I was always the guy with the cocky, some would say arrogant swagger. I think what really shocked people was when I came out in 2009, even though I'd been suffering for 10 years already, I never spoke about it on TV because I really never thought there'd be a value to it. I thought people would go, who cares? Not only is he arrogant, but he's a complainer. And then I found out just by chance, by speaking about my own struggles with a hockey player who spoke about his, I found out that there was a real value to me just talking candidly and openly on television or any other form. And I've kind of turned that into a whole different direction in my life. Which without a doubt has helped my life probably as much or more than it's helped other people's lives.
That's very cool. How did you manage the 10 years before, while you were at work and stuff, before you even decided to deal with your depression or come out with it?
I think I met it the way we all do. And I don't think my job was more difficult than other people's jobs. I just think that my job was obviously more obvious than other people's jobs. But I think everybody that suffers from severe depression, and over the last 20 years, I probably had 5 years of severe depression. And especially in the first 10 years of me suffering, I probably had maybe 4 years over that period of time. I was like really, really struggling. And I think I kind of survived it the same way everybody else does, which is you do because you got no choice. And because this is what you've learned how to do over the course of your life. And that is, to fight for your survival. And in the case of depression is to put on a mask and fool people and make everybody think that everything's a way better than it actually was.
Yeah, I understand the whole struggle, but I personally would think it would be a little more difficult just because being a public figure, you have to for sure have that mask on. There's no slipping up.
Right. But also I'm a professional mask wearer, if you will, because, that's what performing on television or radio is not ever showing people what you're feeling, but you show people what you think that they want to see, or in the case of radio, what they want to hear. So you get really good at being the same every day. Like there's no such thing as a good mood when you're doing a show or a bad mood. You are whatever the mood calls for in the situation that you're doing. Right. You can watch, you can turn on CNN and watch Wolf Blitzer, and Wolf Blitzer seems the same every day, whether or not he's had great things in his life or terrible things in his life. That's what we do as performers. So in a lot of ways, that actually taught me how to be really good at wearing the mask.
So did that make it, in essence, more difficult to take it off?
I think it probably did, because I think I could have and did manage while wearing the mask, and did not, because I'm so good at wearing the mask and so good at deceiving people. I think that there was maybe less reason for me to go out and get help each and every time I kind of fell into that hole, because people didn't necessarily say to me, oh my God, man, you got to go for help. And sometimes when you act like you're okay, you kind of deceive yourself as well. So I think that my job was no more difficult than other people's jobs, or people that didn't have a job. Just existing with that kind of pain, I don't think has anything to do with the role that you have to assume in your life. It's like if someone came and broke your leg and you had this awful pain in your leg, it would be just as difficult to be sitting at home as it would be to be at work or to be anyplace else. Pain is pain is pain. And if work could take away your pain, that would be a great thing, but it can't. And if work magnified your pain, that would be a bad thing, but it doesn't do that for me. We all feel the same thing. And the battle is not to deal with our surroundings. The battle is to deal with ourselves, this inner fight that we have.
And who is the hockey guy again? What was his name?
His name was Stéphane Richer. This was all by choice, Jody. It wasn't like I thought to myself, I'm going to use this shit in my life as something good. I'm going to talk to this guy about that. It wasn't that at all. It was still, I was absolutely sure that it wouldn't have an impact on anyone's life. I just knew I was talking to a guy who had suffered from depression in the 90s, and doing what you do when you host a show, I was trying to think of interesting questions to ask him. And I had read that he suffered from this depression, and I'd never heard of him talking about it. So I thought, it'd be a good question to ask him. But it wasn't like I was trying to reveal anything about myself. I only revealed about myself because he wouldn't have shared if I didn't share. And he basically said that. And I said, would you be okay to talk about it? And he said, no, it's very painful. And I said, well, I don't want you to suffer through pain, but if you'll talk about it, I'll talk about it. So it was kind of all by chance. So I kind of fell into this thing that some would say, Michael, this was a great move that you made, deciding that you were going to use your life to help other people. It wasn't that at all. It was just kind of lucky that on that day he walked in, and on that day when I was researching him, I read in one paragraph that he suffered from depression. And I thought, okay, well, that's a novel question to ask him.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know personally that you've spoken, I can't even count how many events spreading your message with mental health and with Sick Not Weak, which you started. Tell me a bit about that.
Well, it all relates to the same thing. I say this sometimes when I speak. You've heard me speak in person probably 3 times, maybe 4 times. But, I kind of tell people, and I don't say this every time because it's not like I prepare a speech. It's like I'm drawing from 24 hours of material in my head. And if I'm speaking for an hour, I got to pull out the hour from my head that I think is most appropriate for the people I speak to. But, having said that, there's no doubt that of all the things that I've been able to do in my life with broadcasting, that the single thing that allows me to incorporate more of my life than anything is getting on stage and talking about mental illness, or in this case, this conversation we're having. Because it's like all roads of my life lead me to being in front of my laptop now talking to you. You're talking to me, and you first knew about me because I had some, I won't call it fame, but I had a measure of notoriety because I worked on TSN.
I thought you were cocky as shit on TSN.
Well, but I still could be cocky shit. So don't get me wrong. It's not like I don't take cocky as an insult. I don't even take arrogant as an insult because I know it's not true. And one of the things that TV did, and this feeds into where I was going with this, is it feeds into this one thing, which is all roads of my life lead me here. So what have I done in my life, professionally? I've basically learned how to talk, and it's kind of it. I've learned how to write, and, there's other things technically that I've done. So it's not like I've lived a one-dimensional life, but for the most part, that's what I've done. After all these years, I've learned how to talk, and whether you talk to a camera as I am now, or into a microphone as I did this morning, or when you talk on stage to people, it's still the same thing. I have an idea here, and I want you to understand it, and I want you to be engaged enough with me that you'll listen. So here I have this career that taught me how to speak. So here I have this career that gives me platforms available to me because I have a certain measure of notoriety because I've been on TSN. Here I have this illness, which has at different times crippled me and has certainly affected my life more than anything else in my life. So that's 3 things that lead me here. And then the 4th thing is that because of my upbringing, I think I have the confidence to do this job because of the support that I got. But also it gives me the confidence to be able to look into the camera and say to you, look, I suffer from depression. Like, I'm not here to talk about, I'm not here to hide that. It's quite the opposite. There's when I really lose my self-esteem, when me walking into a room filled with people, knowing that I have to go on stage is incredibly frightening for me. I can talk about that without shame and without embarrassment. And because all of those things come together, I can be on a stage talking to people, and in my mind, I'm doing exactly what it should be in my life at this particular time. It's like, this is my calling.
It absolutely is. I've seen you, as you said, speak quite a few times, and I've known you for years. And the way you convey your words and the passion that you come across with is heard by the small group we were at, to the film premiere we were at, to that huge union thing we were at. It all comes across as real. You sound real, and your words are taken to heart.
It's like you can go watch a speaker and you can evaluate the speaker in a million different ways. But at its core, the question, the most important question is probably, was that person genuine? Did you feel like you were getting something from inside that person? Was that person sharing something with you because they have lived that experience, or were they sharing it with you because they think it's good that they talk that way? And with me, you can go, you know what, he was a smart ass. I thought he was obnoxious, or I thought he was arrogant or cocky. You could say anything you want, but no one is going to say he's not real. No one's going to say that he's making this stuff up. No one's going to say that he's not speaking from the heart. And I have only one card to play, as I've said in speeches. I said, the only thing I have is the fact that I am real, that I am genuine, and that I understand what the average person has who has average severe depression. I can speak to them and have them go, he's got to be real because he understands us, because he's telling us what we have lived and experienced in our own heads. And that's really powerful for people.
It is. It's always more powerful when it comes from someone who's a little bit more of an iconic figure who comes out, like we see like famous people coming out with depression, and it's probably very hard for them being in the spotlight, but it seems to open up the doors for a lot of other people, especially their young fans and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it does, for sure. I think one of the things that you find with very famous people, and, we always joked around, I'm in the B celebrity category, right? There's only two levels of celebrity. You're either A or B. And if you're a C, then you're not a celebrity. And it was like when we started off the record, I was probably a B celebrity. And then when the show was at its height, I was probably a B plus celebrity. Well, now I host a radio show, which is lower profile, but I have the profile of mental health. So let's say I'm a B or just a shade below a B plus. But if you're an A celebrity, what you typically see is you see people that don't want to share, that don't want to really expose themselves to their audience. But sometimes they have no choice, right? If you disappear for 6 months, you got to tell people where you were. Or if people are writing about your struggles with mental health, or if it's obvious in your career that there's something wrong, you need to share. But sometimes people only share once. It's like, okay, I am going to tell you this, that I had to go into a full-time facility. I suffer from depression. But if you think I'm going to talk about that next week and over again, Catherine Zeta-Jones, I remember she came out, she talked about being bipolar 2, and it was like huge value in that for people who went and looked at her and went, wow, I'm shocked. Look at her. She looks like he's got everything, which we all know has nothing to do with mental illness. But then she was on the Today Show and she was being interviewed by her friend, I guess a month later. And her friend asked her a question, how she's doing. And she said, I'm not here to talk about that. I don't want to talk about that. Don't think that I want to talk about that. And there's a lot of celebrities that you hear, they'll say it once and you'll never hear it again.
Yeah, although that's good, it would be a lot better if it was openly spoken about like you do all the time, because I know that you don't probably know the extent of the ripple effect that you cause. I get messages from people I don't even know asking me about you, and you probably get thousands of messages just because you're you and you're genuine and you give your support. And when you give it, you actually are genuine with your words and your support, and you don't not be there for people. And that in itself is like such an amazing quality to have.
Yeah, I think you, like in my case, I really have no idea you say about the ripples, and I think if you start thinking about that, if you start trying to reach more people, the idea of reaching more people is awesome, right? That's what this is about. And the more people you reach, the more people you help. But still, you can't do this because you want people to see you. You do this because when you look into a camera, you get on a stage, you have something that you hope one person will go, wow, you know what? I really feel like I'm understood. Or, you know what? If I could hear that guy talking about his struggles without shame and embarrassment, then maybe I can do it too. So the idea is to reach one person. And if you reach more than that, then that's kind of all bonus and that's all gravy. But the truth is, like you're being complimentary to me, but this is actually the most natural thing and the easiest thing that I've ever done in my career. I've done lots of things that I found really challenging. I do find it challenging to go give a speech on a day when I'm struggling. That is like my worst nightmare and my biggest fear. But also, I love the challenge of walking into a room filled with people and I don't know anyone. And these people would look at me and think, okay, well, what's he going to bring? Is this going to be worth my time? You know, who is this guy? I watched this guy on TV. I thought he was arrogant. How do I, over a course of 1 hour, create a bond with these people that's strong enough that we can talk about the most personal things in our lives? So I really, really like that challenge. And in a lot of ways, like I said, I get as much as I give in this.
Oh, absolutely. And with the ripple effect, again, like you may not be looking for it, but just to let you know, it's happening. I have people in England who are now asking about Sick Not Week, and I talked to in Thailand the other day, and it's just kind of like spreading slowly all over the place. And I think I invite people to the family, and you started Sick Not Week. So tell me why.
I think it was, the name came up in a speech I was giving where, you know, I was begging people. I was saying, please, someone debate me on this. Because, you know, here's the thing, Jody. We know the stigma is out there. We know that the stigma is everywhere. We know that the stigma is in a doctor's office, where if you go to your family doctor and you say, I have not had a moment of joy in 5 years in my life. Every day has been worse than the next. That to many family doctors is not an emergency. You know, it's like, okay, I understand that, but we'll get you in to see. And I'm not here to crap on family doctors. I'm saying that the stigma that mental illness is not life-threatening. The stigma that, well, at least you don't have cancer, or come on, you know what, if you just try a little bit harder, you can get by. All of that is pervasive through our world. It's still here. It's still a massive factor. So I beg people in this audience that I was speaking to, was at Mount Sinai Hospital. And I said, someone challenge me on this. I'm telling you that mental illness and physical illness are exactly the same, that mental illness is a physical illness, that in many ways, something like severe depression is exactly identical to cancer or diabetes or any other physical illness that you can talk about. And I don't mean it's the same in terms of the symptoms, of course, or even the severity. I'm telling you that each one is based on a physical change in our bodies that lead to these symptoms. And finally, someone said, you know, I don't think it's like cancer. I think that, you can help it if you really try. That if you really sat back and you said, you know what, I'm going to appreciate the good things in my life. And I said, oh, God, thank you for saying that, right? Because we know people think that. I've spoken to in the last 2 years, 10,000 people. I'm just making the number up. Probably more than that, actually. If I'm going to lie, I should lie on the higher side. How many of you think the stigma of mental illness is still a problem? And out of 10,000 people, 9,990 have said yes. Actually, probably 10,000. And then I say, how many of you think that you're part of the problem? And out of those 10,000 people, probably 100 have put up their hands. So I said, well, where's the disconnect here? You think that it's a huge problem in our society, but none of you think that you're part of the problem. Maybe part of the problem is we don't realize that we're part of the problem. We can't see it in ourselves. People are racist who don't see it in themselves. There are men that treat women in ways that are disrespectful, that if you shone the light on them, they would go, oh, my God, I can't believe I actually said that to a woman. But they don't think that they're part of the problem. So the stigma is a huge problem. We had this discussion, and I said at the end of it, you know, dude, let me say this. I'm sick, but I'm not weak. And it kind of just stuck, and I kind of used it in more ways. And then a couple of years ago, I thought, you know, I want to do something that's bigger than just me, to try to build something that will have a life unto itself, that a message that people can share with each other, as opposed to me going to give a speech and maybe it ending there. And we know that we live in a time of hashtags, right? You know, if you can create something that's really portable, that people can take with them, that's way more effective than if you give them 10,000 words, but none of those words stand out. So we started doing Sick Not Week, then we created a not-for-profit, then a charity, and still all about creating portable messages like fuck the walk. That's kind of all the sort of hashtags that I've shared with people, that's kind of the one that resonates the most, because everybody who struggles with depression has heard you should go for a nice walk. And everybody who suffered from depression knows that is an absurd thing to say to somebody who's got this chronic illness. So Sick Not Week really started that way, as an argument or as a rebuttal, and it just kind of turned into a name that has meaning to it. Whereas, you know, a company like, I'm trying to think of a company that would be out there that name's just a name, you know, Apple, Microsoft. I mean, they're just names, right? I mean, and in this case, it's really important because maybe the only message you get across is the name of the charity.
Did you think it was going to grow this big? Like, do you know how big it is?
No, it's not. And I think I'm disappointed in how big it's not. And that is because I don't have the capability of being a CEO and saying, okay, well, let's go out and let's raise money here and let's do this. And like, I'm comfortable doing what I'm doing now, which is, looking into that little tiny hole on the computer and speaking to you about this topic. That's for me, that's what I do best. And then when you say, okay, well, you got to take that skill and you got to try to build it into something a lot bigger, then you need a lot of other skills. So to answer your question, I'm disappointed that we're not bigger, but we will get there because I'll find people along the way that can help me and do the things that I'm not capable of.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't even know, like, I think it's at like 22,000 followers or something, but for all the people that don't follow, that still use it as a community, it's become like a safe space. It's a safe hashtag. It's okay to express how you're feeling. It's okay to reach out.
We're this big. We're like this big on the mental health landscape. And the message is valuable enough that if we could find a way to get it out there tomorrow, the message, or to more people, the message would be far greater. And that's the challenge. It's like if you knew that you had a treatment for a certain illness and you were only selling 100 doses of it a week, you would say, oh my gosh, like this is frustrating because I know that this medicine in this vial will help people with whatever illness that is. But so few people know of it. I'm only getting this out to 100 people a week. That would be frustrating. And I kind of look at this the same way, that I know that this message has a value to it. I also know the limitations on the value, right? Like I tweeted yesterday, I said, I know that a community, that is supportive and having people to share with is not a treatment for mental illness, is not going to take someone who's severely depressed and make them okay. I just know that it has a small value in different ways with different people. And I know it's effective. So it's frustrating that it's not bigger than it is.
It has a huge value to a lot of people. I've seen the messages that people in crisis and the responses that they've got, and it's big in people's hearts. It may not be as large in size as you want, but I think it's affected so many people in so many ways that you don't really know.
I mean, I agree with that. The value of the message is not the messenger. I can get up there and I can brag about the value of the message because I'm not bragging about the message because it comes from me. I'm saying, and I say this all the time, anybody can do what I do if you have certain things. Number one, if you have had this illness. Number two, if you have a willingness to share this illness. Number three, if you have the skill to be able to communicate what this illness feels like to people that gives them real value. And number four, if you get podiums, stages available to you, platforms available to you that allow you to get the message out. So I know what I am and I know what I'm not. And I know that the message is really important for people and can make a difference in people's lives. I know that it can convince someone to share who has not shared, someone to go for help who's never gone for help. I know that it can help a caregiver understand better that they can't understand. So I know all those things are important for sure. I just know that they're only a small part of the equation of getting from here, which might be a position of real sickness, to better.
I think that the message comes across well in every audience, and I don't see anyone untouched, and I believe that it's not a discussion that isn't carried on. So when you go out to your car, you're still talking about it. When you go home, you're talking to your friends about it. And I think that despite the numbers, that in itself is so important, because if you can get you've gone to small communities, right? And maybe you only have 100 people there, but those 100 people are going to go and continue that discussion because that message has actually hit them.
Yeah. Well, it's a message that is not a really sexy message. So if you say, if you went to not a small community, because small communities are much easier to reach people, right? Because people don't have the same number of options. So if you said, Michael Landsberg, Sick Not Weak, going to speak at the community center, tickets are free. Come out, book your tickets on Eventbrite. You would have a pretty good chance of filling the Civic Arena or whatever the arena was. If you do that in Toronto, not going to happen. You're never going to attract enough people to go, wow, this was really good. People really gravitated towards this because this is something that people typically don't want to hear. People typically don't want to go out of their homes to hear someone talk about mental illness. When they find out what the message is, like if I go to speak to a corporation and these people are kind of forced to be there because it's a company thing, when they leave, I can have people go, yeah, you know what, that was worthwhile. But to get people to come to hear someone speak about mental illness is a real challenge. So the key is to try to find ways to wrap it around things that are more entertaining. Like if you did a TV show just about mental health and you said, I'm going to have like the biggest guests. We're going to have any famous person that you can think of that suffered from a mental health challenge. We're going to get them on this show. It sounds great. People wouldn't watch. Now you get some, but people wouldn't watch because telling people that you're going to talk to them about this subject is not something that generally draws them to their TV screen. So you got to find ways to say, come and watch this show. We're going to do something really fun. And while we're doing that, we're going to deliver you this message.
Do you think that that's going to change as the numbers, they say like 1 in 4 right now? They're not going to be 1 in 4. It's going to be 1 in 2, 1 in 1.
Yeah, I think it'll still be hard to get people to buy into the idea that they want to invest time in watching a television show, or they want, I mean, like 12 Reasons Why. Hugely successful, but it became hugely successful. And why? I mean, whether you agree with it or disagree with it, the fact is a ton of people watched it, and they watched it because it was a dramatic series that had entertainment and interest value above and beyond what the message was. And while you may not like what the message was, they still got people, millions of people, to watch a television show about mental health, about suicide. And that is incredibly difficult to do. If you had done the same thing and you had traced the path of a girl in high school who had taken her own life, and you had done it like it was a series of documentaries, people wouldn't watch. So it's like you got to, I call it the fortune cookie theory. If you want people to read the message in the fortune cookie, you got to create something big around it. If you just put messages on people's tables when they went to a Chinese restaurant, they would go, who cares? But the fact that there's this cookie that they have to open up, and the drama of opening it up and cracking it and eating the cookie while you're reading it, that's what gets people. And that's what my goal with mental illness is, to find a way to create the fortune cookie around the message.
Did you watch Afterlife? Because I think that's probably the only series that I have seen that kind of addresses mental health in a lighter but serious and very touching way.
Yeah, but if the same show had been done, but it was not done in a funny way, if it was not like this dark humor from one of the funniest people on the planet, people wouldn't watch it. But you watch it because it's like you're learning, you're sad, but you're also entertained. Because entertainment isn't always, it comes in many different forms. And that's how you get the message out there. You don't get up there by giving a speech and in a monotone voice, talking about the importance of mental health. You at least my angle is to do it and give people energy and give people a little humor and be a smart ass, because that's who I am, right? And try to get the message across that way. Because I'm telling you, it's a loser if you just say, okay, 1 in 4 people, however many it is, out of those 4 people, 3.5 out of 4 care for someone who has a mental health challenge. It's out there, but if you think that they're going to tune you in because it's relevant to their life, you're wrong. You got to give them another reason.
How do you get that? What do you add to it then to get that message across?
I mean, you mentioned a TV show that did it exceptionally well. How did they do that? I mean, they did it by, having great scripts and compelling characters and giving people, people don't want to be educated on sort of mainstream television. I mean, they may tune to PBS or TVO to watch a documentary because they're interested in it. But for the most part, you watch television because you want to be entertained. So how do you entertain them and inform them at the same time? That's the combination. There's a safe and it's got 2 numbers on it. And 1 is entertaining them and 2 is informing them. You can't get into that safe with one and not the other. And that's what the challenge is. And that's where, the real talent is, because the shows that we just talked about are exceptionally well done. And most people can't do those shows. A lot of people can talk about mental health, but not a lot of people can do, a series of 6 one-hour shows on mental illness that are entertaining, interesting, passionate, sad, informative.
Right. And how about you and your depression? Now, it's pretty managed, yes?
Yeah, I have, it seems like on average I have different times during the day when, especially when I wake up, that I have a lot of negative.
PND, post-nap depression.
Post-nap depression, for sure. Unfortunately for me, waking up from sleep is a tough time. Most people only wake up from sleep once a day, but because I work early in the morning, I now sleep twice a day. So there's 2 times. But, given where I I've been, the issue for me is never complained about anything that I've experienced, because I know what it's like to have the worst of this illness. And the fact that my worst day is a 4 out of 10 means that, that's cause for celebration, right? It's like there's nothing that I've experienced while on medication that I can't handle. Now, do I want to be on medication? Absolutely not. Do I wish I could get off medication? Absolutely. Do I think some days when I go for days in a row feeling pretty good, do I think, you know what, I might be able to wean myself off this? And then I'll have a small dose of a 4 out of 10, and I'll go, oh my God, I could never go off this, because I just felt moderate depression, not severe depression, but something in the middle. And it's the worst thing that I can ever imagine. Oh my God, I can never go off this, because if I ever go back to being down there, first of all, I wouldn't be able to live with myself, knowing that, I was out of the hole. Like I'm standing above the hole looking down in it. And for me to say, you know what, I'm going to take some risks and jump over the hole is ridiculous. I'm out of the hole. Celebrate that and appreciate the fact that everything comes with a price. Medication comes with a price. And that's a price that I'm willing to pay, because it keeps me out of that hole.
I don't know how many medications I've been through and tried, and this last one has been the only one that I've ever had weight problems with. So along with the edema, I've probably put on like 10 pounds, and then that in itself turns into like almost a cycle of depression, because then you're like, if I just get off these meds, I'll drop the 10 pounds in 2 weeks, right? And then I'll feel better about myself. But
yeah, medication is a deal with the devil. Medication sucks. Everybody experiences side effects. But the issue is, does it suck worse than the illness itself? And in my case, I've made the decision that while I don't like being on meds, I would rather suffer the side effects of being on medication than the risk of suffering the severe part of this illness. And all of us, make that decision. It's all a balancing act, right? And for me, I've made my choice.
Are you still keeping track of your bad days on your arm?
Yep.
What are we at? I can't see it blurry.
3. I have 3 on my arm. Yeah, but that's pretty well typical. At the end of the month, I always have 5 or 6 marks, which is a victory, right? It's like you could say, okay, well, that's out of 5 days. If you've never had depression, then you would look at that and say, well, that's not very good. But if you've had 5 out of 5 days, if you've had every day as being one that you really had given up your life to, then having 5 or 6 is a huge win.
I know, like for myself and a lot of BPD people that I've spoken with, we bounce up and down so much, so that if you actually have like a good hour or 2 hours within the day, it's almost such a relief, because the bouncing's coming back again, but it's 2 hours of not freedom really, but less mental agony, if that makes sense.
The times when I have been deep in that hole, I have now gone, this would have been me off medication, going, I haven't had in a year where I thought, I'm feeling okay. It was relentless. It was as if no matter what happened, whether it was a sunny day or a cloudy day, whether I was at work or on holiday, whether I was eating in a restaurant enjoying my meal, or I was sitting on my couch watching television, or I was doing stuff that I don't like, it didn't matter. It was relentless. And that kind of relentless, I think, wears people down. And, at a certain point you go, I can't fight this anymore. I'm just too exhausted to fight.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you can get the help and are willing to, it's not even that you can, if you are willing to try and get the help or reach out to someone who can help point you in the right direction, that's probably the hardest thing to do. But once you get there, it's like baby steps forward. You happen to be lucky with your medication. You found one that works relatively well for you. Now, I am also you take Wellbutrin, correct?
I take Cipralex, Wellbutrin, and I started on Vyvanse. It's a question I ask people all the time when they say, I don't know about my medication. Here's a question. If you had to live how you feel, like not right now as in this second, but like this week, this month, in general, how you are, if you had to live that way the rest of your life, and if the answer is yes, which my answer is yes, I'm good with this. It's far from perfect, but far better than what it was before. If the answer is no, then you got to keep pursuing help. You got to say, okay, well, like I'm on these medications, but they're not helping me nearly enough. And that you've tried and you failed. and you've tried and you've failed. It's so dispiriting. And these people that people give up and just go, you know what, I can't do it anymore.
Yeah, I almost did a bunch of times, and now I'm at the point, like, I've taken so many meds, I'm like, I might as well take one more. Like, what's the worst that can happen? Like, I've already spent so much time in my life being in a suicidal state that it doesn't matter. You might as well try, for me, anything. So now I'm on a med that I've found, Elavil, that's kind of balanced me out a little more with my Abilify and Wellbutrin.
So the idea is that the attitude has to be that you gotta keep trying, because once you give up, then that's where the hopelessness sets in. And when you feel really shitty for 6 months in a row, and you've tried a lot of things and you stop trying different things and you fall into this rut, you know tomorrow when you wake up, you will feel just as shitty as you did today. And that feeling of inevitability, that feeling of hopelessness, is, I think, what leads people very often to suicide. Is, I think, people with hope, with people who go, you know what, I mean, you know, I might get better from this. I think they're much less prone to taking their lives than those who believe that they are destined to feel the pain that they feel today for the rest of their life.
I think hope is something that's really hard for some people to grasp. Others can grasp a little easier. I think a lot of people need a shove or a hand or a hint to hold on. I know in my darkest times, I really don't have a lot to hang on for. So in my head, I turn it around and go, okay, I've been on the flip side of suicide, so I know how it feels to lose people. I may not want to experience my pain anymore, but nor do I want to put it on you or the few friends that I have. I have no interest in hurting anybody. I just don't necessarily want to feel shitty forever. So then comes in the play, well, do you feel shitty forever, or do you try everything you can, or do you just bounce in between the three? And right now I kind of just bounce between the three, trying whatever I can. I'm waiting for DBT. I've done CBT. I have a psychiatrist with meds. I do private therapy. I can't do much else right now.
Yeah. But as soon as you give up searching for that, I mean, even if even if someone is kind of between treatments, but if they believe in their head, sometimes I tell people, the most important thing you can do is Google treatments for depression and make a list of all the things that you have not done, because that list represents help. You know that, these 10 meds that you tried didn't work. You know that CBT didn't work. And if there's nothing else out there, but I know there's other things out there. And that list of quote unquote other things is what hope is. Hope is that I'm going to go and try something else, and it may work, because there's a lot of history to people who've tried 15 things and they didn't work, but the 16th did. My next door neighbor started going for magnetic stimulation, but she's in an experimental treatment. So instead of having it once a day for a couple of weeks, she's having 10 treatments a day. So it's like you spend the whole day there. She said that after, I don't know, it was like after 8 days, she had a breakthrough. Now, whether that lasts or not, I don't know. I mean, it's not scientific to say, well, she had a breakthrough and therefore it's going to last. But she told me, this was last Friday. She said, oh my God, it was like for the first time in years, she said, I had this relief where I didn't feel like I was in a dark room. It's like someone opened the door and finally there was some light. So, I mean, that's an example of someone that's tried, everything. And maybe there's something out there that you haven't tried. And if you can find that one thing, whether it works or not, at least before, it represents hope.
And again, the community helps with that too, because everybody has had different experiences. They have different coping skills. They've learned different things, and the sharing amongst everybody, it's become such a fantastic open support system with people willing to offer their ideas and their experiences and what medications they're on in order to help others not be in the same state of darkness.
Yeah.
So
everybody wants to share something that was successful for them, right? It's like, oh my gosh, it's like you go to a doctor or you go to a dentist and you have a great dentist. So you walk around telling everyone, oh my gosh, I got the best dentist in the world. And in this world of mental illness, if you have tried something, whether it's medication or another form of therapy or whatever it is, if you have tried something that's worked, you really want to share it with other people.
Yeah, I write a lot, and stepping out of my comfort zone massively to do this, because I like to stay hidden. I'm not like you. I'm not good in front of a camera. I always said that at my funeral, they're going to have trouble finding more than one picture of me. But I think that even with me, you've encouraged me so much and built me up so much that I felt enough courage and braveness to be able to step outside of my comfort zone, because I know that if I fall, there's always this safety net. And it's, for me, my safety net is you, and that's sick, not we.
The only real failure is failure to attempt, because then you destine yourself to this frustration of, well, I want to bring more to the table. And it's not just talking about mental health. It's in any area, but I'm afraid to. And when you think to yourself, I haven't been able to face those fears, I didn't step out, I've remained safe and cautious, you are destining yourself for this frustration and this self-esteem blow that you don't have to, because I'm telling you, better to do something and to have not succeeded as well as you would like than to have not tried at all. And I guess what I'm saying is better to roll the dice, because the simple act of doing something that's out of your comfort zone is a win for sure. And then you find out, you go, look at you, you're having this conversation with me. I mean, I've got 1 billion hours on the air doing this, and you've got, 10 hours on the air doing this. And yet you and I are having an equal conversation here. So that should be proof to you, I could do this, I can do this. And so the victory is double. Number one, you've stepped out of your comfort zone, which is really satisfying. And number two, you've done something actually that you find out, hey, you know what, I can do this. And that there's no replacing that. And that's what you build on. That's the basis for finding your way and feeling good about yourself, is to try things that you'd like to do and that you're afraid to do, because just trying them is a huge win.
Yeah, absolutely. The hashtag proud of the shower. I don't think many people understand that. When you're in the throes of suicide for, 72 hours, the last thing on your mind is, oh, I better go jump in the shower. No, you don't care. You're busy trying to isolate yourself from everything and anything dangerous, trying to preoccupy your mind in any possible way, whether it be through sleep or through over-medicating or music or whatever the case may be. You don't think, oh, let me go have a shower. That's going to help.
It's a fact that self-esteem is one of the first things that mental illness takes. And when your self-esteem is lacking, doing things that scare you are next to impossible. But not impossible, just next to impossible. And the best way to build up this reservoir of some self-esteem is to celebrate small victories. And if taking a shower is a really difficult thing, and you find your way to take a shower and get dressed, you got to say to yourself, you know what, good for me. I did this. This was really hard. And nobody else may understand that. That tiny accomplishment for someone else may be massive for you. And if you don't celebrate that, then taking the next step is not nearly as easy as when you build on the fact that, hey, you know what? This was pretty good. You know what? I'm proud of myself. I went out, or whatever it is that's really difficult to do. If you do it, you feel the sense of pride, or you should force yourself to feel the sense of pride.
For me, I know, stepping out of this and actually having people who, I would ask people oh my God, they're never going to want to come on the show. Who wants to talk to me? But then it turned around, and some people ask if they could come on the show. So then that gives me a little boost in confidence, thinking if I can have a discussion with you, then I can have a discussion with most people. So for me now, it's a little bit of confidence, and also a way to help other people, a different platform than my writing, to share, for people to share stories, I guess.
For sure. And because this scares you, because, this idea of looking into the camera and interviewing someone intimidates you. That's where the real value is. Doing something that you can do is great. I mean, hey, I know I can do my job, so there's nothing wrong with that. But it doesn't give me the same reward that I get when I step out of my comfort zone and I try something. That's where the real boost is, when you do something that you're not sure that you can do.
I think people need to. I think it's human nature. We're so difficult. We're so critical on ourselves, and and the worst as well. I'm sure tons of people do it, but we need to be able to pat ourselves on the back for, as you said, tiny accomplishments, whether it's having a meal or going for a walk or having a shower, even just bloody well just being able to sit up in bed for the day. Take your small achievements, and even sometimes writing shit down helps for people. You achieve something, so write it down, and then you can visibly see it. It's not just a figment of imagination in your head. Did I do that? Yes, I did it, but it doesn't. Sometimes something resonates with people if it's on paper. How's Puppy? It's awfully quiet there. That's why I'm wondering. There's been no attack. There's been no barking, no anything.
He's lying on the couch right now, and he's been sleeping for throughout the duration of this. So, but he'll wake up and he'll be calm, and then he'll go insane for an hour and a half, where you go, oh my gosh, this dog needs to be locked up. And it's just, it's this puppy energy that gets insane. And it doesn't matter what you say to him, he's going to do it. But, dogs are great. Dogs are great for, if you're the most mentally healthy person in the world, dogs are great. And if you're the least mentally healthy person in the world, a dog is great as well.
Oh, absolutely. They bring so much joy. And it's like the age 2 that's really fun with kids, They're starting to get into shit, but they're not too mouthy yet. Dogs are like the same thing. They're like at that fun age where everything's playful, and the only thing they can do is bark at you.
It's very true.
Anyway, my friend, I know you have to get to sleep and probably do a million other things. I so appreciate your time.
I so appreciate your time. I so appreciate the chance. I so appreciate just watching you in action. It's pretty cool. Keep it up. Keep challenging yourself, because this is good. This was that you did a good job. That's a huge accomplishment for you, and for anyone. Anything that you think, I don't know if I can do it, and then you go do it. Oh my God, it's the best thing. So thank you for this chance.
Well, as we wrap up the show, I would like to give special thanks to our guest Michael Landsberg for sharing his time and his story with us. If you enjoyed today's show, make sure to subscribe to the podcast so you never miss another episode. If you have any comments or questions, or wish to be a guest on the show, you can message me at OneLastKick71 on Twitter, JodyBBEE on Facebook, or through my website, jodybetty.com. Links can be found on the podcast website. Thank you for spending your time with us. Hopefully we can help to eliminate or at least reduce the stigma around mental health. Until next time, take care and be well.